Seches Nedarim Daf Pei Dalid concludes the Gemara's discussion as to when a woman makes an Isser Hana on all people, does that include her husband or not? The Gemara is going to bring a question and an answer on the subject. Then the Gemara will go to giving out Meiser Ani and giving out Truma and Meiser. Is that considered to be something you're getting from the person, and if there's an Isser Hana, you can't take it or not? And those two halachos are both discussed or not discussed in our Mishnah, and the Gemara will explain the opinions that surround that issue. So let's begin. The Gemara has just said that when a woman makes an Isser on Brios, on all people, she's not going to have enough from them. The husband is not included in that. She's still allowed to have enough from her husband. The Gemara has a kash on that. We have a Mishnah where a woman says Natua ani min Yehudim, which is an Isser Tashmish on all Jews. Now, there the halacha is that the husband could be Mayfair, but he can only be Mayfair relative to himself. And if she were to get divorced from him, she still has an Isser Tashmish on anyone else. So the Gemara says that is a type of halacha which comes from a hafara for the reason that it's beinoi lebeino. The halacha is if there's two reasons a man could be made for his wife's neder. If it's because it's between the two of them, beinoi lebeino, then it only counts between the two of them and the rest of the neder stands, which is what we're saying here. If it's because of inui nefesh, because it's an affliction, then it's mutter for everyone. In this case, obviously, since we're saying that she stays with the Isser Tashmish on everyone else, were she to get divorced from him, obviously the only reason it's being made for is because it's beinoi lebeino. So the question is, if we're saying that this is considered to be beinoi lebeino, so then obviously the husband was included in the Isser Hana. The husband was included in the Isser Tashmish. So when she said she's making an Isser Tashmish, it applied to her husband as well. If the husband was not included, then why would he allowed to be made for this? The only reason could be because it's inui nefesh. If it's inui nefesh, then the heter should apply. Then once he's made for it to everybody. If she gets divorced from him, she has no Isser on anyone else. So the Gemara therefore answers that no. Normally it does not apply to the husband. Husband is not included in people at all. Here though, it has to be. And the reason is because the only person she's allowed to have tashmish with is her husband. She's married to him. Therefore, obviously, you assume that the neder applies to that one person right now. Therefore, it's beinoi lebeino, and therefore his hafara is only beinoi lebeino. It doesn't apply to anyone else. And therefore, if they get divorced, his hafara did not matir that neder as far as it applies to anybody else. All right, now the Gemara goes to the next line. The Mishnah had said that if a woman makes Isser Hana on the entire world, she's still allowed to take leket shikha and peya. It's not considered to be violating the Isser Hana because the people who are giving the leket shikha and peya, they don't have any rights to give it out to anybody. Therefore, they have no control over it. They don't have a stake in it. She's not taking it from them. She's taking it from Hefker. So Gemara asks, what about Meiser Sheni? Why is Meiser Sheni not on the list? She should be able to also take Meiser. Why is Meiser Ani, that is? Why is Meiser Ani not on the list? The Gemara says it actually is a brisa that says she's allowed to take Meiser Ani. So the Gemara says you seem to have a machlokes here. So there's a machlokes over whether or not she's allowed to take Meiser Ani. So Rav Yosef says yes, a machlokes of Eliezer and the Chachamim about a different topic, and that applies to this as well. What's that machlokes? Machlokes is about demai. Demai is if you buy produce from an Amaretz, where you have to be afraid he didn't take Meiser properly. So do you have to take Meiser again? So the halacha is that Meiser, that Truma you do not. Amaratzim take Truma because it carries an Isser Misa. You don't have to worry about that. Meiser Rishon you do have to take. Trumas Meiser is a separate discussion. It's a different sugya you do have to take. Meiser Ani, that's a machlokes here. Rabbi Eliezer says you don't have to take Meiser Ani. And the Chavim say you do have to take Meiser Ani. Now, as far as how you take it, you don't have to give it away to anybody because it's only a suffix. According to Rabbi Eliezer, you just eat it. You don't have to take it off at all. According to the Chachamim, you have to be koreshin. You have to look, identify a certain part of the produce and think or say that that's Meiser Ani, and then you don't have to give it because no one could claim. There is no teveya, so no one could claim it from you because you have to prove, because it's only demai, it's only suffix whether Meiser Ani was taken already or not, and if you just leave it in there and you eat it. So now the Gemara wants to know, what is this machlokes based on? So when it says pashtus machlokes is based on, in a vadai situation, if you took everything but not Meiser Ani, is that tevel? Does that carry an Isser Misa of tevel or not? The pashtus is going to Rabbi Elazar. Even vadai lack of Meiser Ani, even if you vadai missed Meiser Ani from something that's chayiv, it's not tevel. Therefore, in the case of demai, where it's just a suffix, you don't have to take that off. According to Chachamim, if it would be if you forgot to take or you did not take Meiser Ani from something which is Vadei Chayev, it would be Tevel. And therefore, in case of Dairat Sasavik, you do have to take it. So the Gemara wants to say, well, if it's so strong, according to the Chachamim, that it carries Tevel if you didn't take Meiser Ani, most likely, then, it actually has a teva sana, which means that the owner who's giving the Meiser Ani out has the right to decide who he wants to give it to, and he can even take money from someone to give it to a relative of his. So therefore, he has a bit of a stake in it. He has a bit of an ownership in it, and it would be considered like whoever is getting it from him. And if there's an Isser Hana, it wouldn't be allowed to get it. That's why it's not included in the Mishnah here. According to Rabbi Lazar, that there's no tevel on Vadai Meiser, on Vadai. On Paris that are Vade Chayv and Masani that wasn't taken. Therefore, the pashtus is that there is no type of sana, and therefore there is no ownership stake in it. It's considered to be completely hefker, and that's why it's not mentioned in the Mishnah. So this is what Rabbi Yosef says. And Mersa Abai disagrees, and Abai says really Machak between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, whether you have to take Meiser Ani from Dimai has nothing to do with this. They both actually agree that there is tevel if you didn't take Meiser Ani from a Vadai. Machlekes here is, are we afraid that Amaratzim don't take Meiser Ani? According to Rabbi Eliezer, you don't have to be afraid of that. They take Meiser Ani, and the reason is because they end up keeping it for themselves anyway. What do? They're mafkir their property. They become aniyim, and then they have the right to keep their own Meiser Ani. And so that's what they do, and therefore you don't have to be concerned that Demai didn't have Meiser Ani taken from it. According to Chachamim, no one's mafkir their own things if they don't need to. Certainly not such in a rush to, because they're afraid they may lose it. Somebody else may come and be zelcha in it before they get a chance to be zelcha it back, and therefore they don't take Meiser Ani, and therefore you should be koreshim. But however, it has nothing to do with whether there's tevel or not, and therefore it has nothing to do with whether there's a type of sana, and it does not explain why in our Mishnah you didn't have Meiser Ani mentioned, and in the Ma'aseh you did have Meiser Ani mentioned. We don't have two opinions on that subject. So Rava gives a different answer. So the Rava says we're talking about two different types of Meiser Ani. Meiser Ani can be given out in the granary, and Meiser Ani can be given out in the house. If you forgot to take it off in the granary, you take it in the house. And there's two psukim discussing that. The one that is in the house says V'nosato la Levi v'lager, and that V'nosat implies you're giving it, so you have a chelik in it, and if somebody has an Esher Hana on you, they can't take it from you because they're getting something from you, and that would be why our Mishnah leaves it out. The Bryce is talking about where it was given out in the granary. There, the pasuk language is v'hanachta b'sharacha. You should leave it. That implies that it's hefker. You're just leaving it for the people who are coming to take it, and they're not taking it from you. There's no hana from you. They're just getting it from hefker, and that's why the Bryce says that someone who's an Esher Hana is allowed to take that as well. All right, now the Gemara goes to the next line in the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said about Kohanim and Leviim. So it said that if a woman makes an Isser Hana on all Kohanim and Leviim, they could still come and take Meiser Hana. They could still come and take the Truma and Meiser from her and not violating the Isser Hana. That applies the fact that she has the right to give it at whichever Kohanim or Leviim she wants, which is called the Tevas Hana, which has some value. That's not a significant enough value. It's not considered to be violating the Isser Hana. That's the only explanation we could have for why they're still allowed to take it from her. So Gemara therefore says, then how do you understand later where we said that if she asks her specific Kehanim Leviim, then those Kehanim Leviim don't take it from her, it could go to other ones. Why not? The only value that she has in it is because she can decide who to give it to, but it's not hers. The Torah said she can't keep her Truma. It's got to be given out. So why should it be considered like they're taking it from her if Tovas Hana is nothing, like we just said before? Meaning, the Gemara is asking, how do you differentiate between these two cases? The only value you could have is Tovas Hana. If that's considered to be a value, then how come the Kohanim and Leviim are allowed to take it when she answers all of them? And if it's not considered to be a value, how come they're not allowed to take it when she only answers some of them? So the Gemara says it's not a kasha, it's really a machlokes, and the two phrases in the Mishnah are two different opinions. The machlok is whether or not the Tevas Hana is considered to be real value or not. It's Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda. The Gemara quotes a brisa. It says if somebody steals tevel, that is unmeisered produce, untrumad produce from his friend, and he eats it up, so how much does he pay? Does he pay for the full tevel that he stole? So Rabbi says he has to pay the full tevel, including the truma meiser that they're eventually going to have to give away. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says no. He only has to pay what he's going to get to keep after he gives away Truma Meiser, because the Truma Meiser part is not his anyway. What's that argument about? Obviously, the argument is over the Tavis Hana, the rights to give the Truma and the Meiser to who you want to. According to Rebbe, that is value, and therefore he has to pay. That means he has an ownership stake in that, and the guy who stole it has to pay for it. Right? Rabbi Yehuda, he doesn't have that right. It's not considered to be real monetary value. Although he does have the right, it's not considered to be real monetary value, and therefore he doesn't have to pay for it when he stole it. Doesn't have to pay it back because the person is never considered to have owned it at all. And those are the two phrases in the Mishnah. The beginning of the Mishnah, which says that she gives it to Kahanim Levim, even though there's an Isser Hana, is assuming that there is no value there, and that's like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and the end of the Mishnah says that she doesn't give it to them, assuming there is value, and that's like Rebbe.